Personal reflection. Some stories stay with you long after you hear them, not because they're extraordinary, but because they remind us what matters. This is about a mother fighting to stay alive for her child. It's about people who could have walked away but didn't. It happened in the grasslands of Kenya, where a veterinarian named Sarah and a young lion cub taught each other something about not giving up. There's no fantasy here, no miracles, just the kind of quiet courage we see in mothers everywhere, whether they walk on 2 legs or 4. Sometimes the smallest acts of compassion echo the loudest. Sarah's hands were inside the wound when the lioness's heartbeat stuttered. The infection had spread deep into the muscle. Her forearm stung where an acacia thorn had opened skin an hour ago, still bleeding through the surgical glove. The cub sat 10 feet away. Yellow eyes locked on every movement Sarah made. Hadn't blinked in 5 minutes. Emily's breathing came too fast behind the surgical mask. "Dr. Brennan." "I know." Sarah's fingers found the quill fragment buried in tissue. 3 inches of porcupine spine wrapped in scar. She pulled. The lioness's heart skipped again. The cub stood, tail twitching. Sarah's arthritic hand cramped around the forceps. One wrong move and the artery tears open. The mother bleeds out. The cub dies alone within days. 14 hours earlier. None of this had started yet. If you've ever sat by someone's bedside, hoping they'd fight just a little longer, you know this feeling. Drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from tonight. Sarah's coffee tasted like rust. Same chipped Oregon State mug she'd brought 3 months ago. Same instant grounds that dissolved grainy on her tongue. 6:30 in the morning and the Mara already shimmered hot through the tent screen. She lit a cigarette. Got halfway through before stubbing it out on a flat rock. The framed photo lay face down on the camp table. 11 days since she'd looked at David's face. She was counting now. Vultures circled over grid 7. 3 of them riding thermals in tight spirals. Either a predator kill or something dying slow. Sarah watched them through binoculars while the coffee cooled. The grassland spread golden brown to the horizon, broken by dark acacia silhouettes. She'd learned to read it like an X-ray. Empty spaces meant sick animals. Changing patterns at the waterhole meant something wrong. The radio crackled. James's voice came through flat and calm. "Dr. Sarah, lioness down. Acacia Grove. Looks bad." Sarah set the mug down. Her hands didn't shake yet. That came later. After adrenaline wore off, she pulled the medical kit from under her cot, checked supplies by touch. Scalpels, forceps, suture kit, antibiotics, added an extra morphine vial. Didn't let herself think about why. Emily was already awake outside, charging her camera battery on the solar panel, 28 years old, and still thought everything needed documenting. "Is this the one Marcus has been tracking?" Emily squinted toward grid 7. "Don't know. Let's go." Sarah climbed into the Land Rover. The steering wheel burned her palms. She cranked the engine and it coughed blue smoke before catching. Emily scrambled into the passenger seat. Camera already in hand. "Dr. Brennan, should I just sit?" The drive took 12 minutes, about 3 miles over rutted track that jarred Sarah's teeth. Dust plumed behind them thick enough to taste. Through the windshield she could see Marcus's vehicle already parked at the grove. And beyond it, the dark shape under the acacia tree that wasn't moving. She killed the engine. In the sudden quiet, she heard it a high-pitched chirping. Continuous. Desperate. Not the lioness. The cub. Marcus stood 40 yards from the acacia tree, binoculars pressed to his face. He didn't turn when Sarah's Land Rover stopped. His shoulders were rigid under his khaki shirt, dark with sweat between the shoulder blades. Sarah grabbed the dart rifle from the back. The metal barrel scorched her palm. She loaded it, walking 4.5 milligrams medetomidine, 300 milligrams ketamine in a red-tipped dart. Her thumbnail pressed the plunger to check the seal. The lioness lay in torn grass under the tree's shadow, 25 yards out. Sarah could see the neck swollen grotesque, twice the normal width. Matted fur crusted dark where infection had dried. The smell hit next rot sweet, unmistakable, deep enough to turn septic. The cub paced tight circles around his mother, maybe 30 pounds, ribs showing through dull coat. When Sarah took another step, he stopped, positioned himself between her and the lioness. His fur bristled along his spine. The hiss came out wrong, too high-pitched, not a proper growl yet. Sarah planted her feet. The grass crunched dry under her boots. Through the rifle scope, she could see the lioness's flank rise and fall. Shallow breathing, 40 beats per minute when it should be 15. The neck wound leaked clear fluid into the dirt. "Need to dart the cub," Marcus spoke without lowering the binoculars. "He'll attack during surgery. He weighs maybe 30 pounds. Standard dose could stop his heart. So, we calculate lower. I'm not risking it. We control the perimeter." Emily climbed out of the Land Rover, camera already recording. Both Sarah and Marcus turned. "No," Sarah said. "Put that away," Marcus said at the same time. Emily lowered the camera. "It's for documentation. I said put it away." Marcus's jaw was tight enough Sarah could see the muscle jump. She'd been here 3 months, and they'd argued about protocol every single week. He wanted everything by the book. She wanted animals alive. A second Land Rover approached from the east, dust trailing. James climbed out slow, scanning the area before walking over. He was 56 and moved like he had all day. His eyes went to the cub first, then the lioness, then the 3 of them standing in a cluster. He spoke to Marcus in Swahili, 3 sentences, low and fast. Marcus responded. James shook his head. "English," Sarah said. James turned to her. "I asked where the pride is. Marcus says they moved north yesterday. This lioness did not go with them. Because she's too sick to travel." "Yes." The cub chirped again, that desperate sound that made Sarah's teeth ache. He was pacing faster now, figure 8s around his mother's body. "The cub will not attack," James said. "He is afraid. Not aggressive." Marcus lowered the binoculars. "You can't know that. I watched them for 3 days before calling. He stays close. He does not hunt. He does not leave her even to drink water. If he interferes during surgery..." James's voice went quiet. "My son was killed by a lion. I know the difference between fear and aggression." No one spoke. Sarah had heard the story once from another ranger. The boy was 12. James hadn't talked about it since. Marcus looked at his boots. Sarah raised the dart rifle. "We dart the mother. James controls the cub. Marcus and Emily set perimeter." "This is a mistake," Marcus said. "Noted." Sarah braced the rifle stock against her shoulder. Her hands shook loading the dart, just a tremor, barely visible. She steadied the barrel against the Land Rover's hood. Exhaled slow. The lioness's shoulder filled the scope's crosshairs. She fired. The dart hit left shoulder. Good placement. The lioness jerked, tried to lift her head, failed. Her head dropped back to the dirt. Then she turned toward the cub and made a sound low, rhythmic. Prum, prum, prum. Sarah had heard it before in other mothers. Reassurance. The cub pressed against his mother's flank and chirped back. 10 minutes, Sarah said. She set the rifle down and checked her watch. Emily shifted her weight. "What's the success rate for field surgery?" "Depends on the infection." "But generally, we don't operate in the field." Marcus heard that, said nothing. His jaw stayed tight. James walked toward the ridge. Scanning with binoculars, he pointed. "Maasai elders, 3 of them, watching." Sarah could just make them out dark shapes against the skyline, 200 yards off. "They allowing this?" Marcus asked. This lioness killed a goat 6 weeks ago. They permit the rescue, but she must stay away from livestock after. We can't guarantee her hunting patterns." "Then we pay for more goats." Sarah checked her watch. 8 minutes since the dart hit. The lioness's breathing had slowed, deepened. Her eye was half open, glazed. The cub sat now, 6 feet from his mother, staring at Sarah without blinking. At 10 minutes. Sarah approached. Her boots crushed dry grass. The cub didn't retreat, didn't advance, just watched. She knelt beside the lioness. The smell was worse up close infection mixed with the wild musk of unwashed fur. She pressed 2 fingers to the lioness's femoral artery. Pulse rapid and thready. Her gloved hand probed the neck abscess. The swelling was hot, tense. She palpated deeper and felt it a hard, foreign object embedded in muscle tissue. Porcupine quill, broken off at the surface, months old. The infection had tracked from the quill site into the lymph nodes. Sarah felt along the neck 3 nodes swollen hard as marbles. The lioness's temperature would be running high. Dehydration severe when Sarah pinched the skin. It stayed tented. She sat back on her heels. Without surgery, the lioness had maybe 2 days. The cub had a week after that. If the hyenas didn't get him first— "I need to operate," Sarah said. "Here. Now." Marcus turned. "Last field surgery we did, the wildebeest died on the table. That was different. Bowel perforation. We had no— It died under your hands." Sarah's face stayed blank. "Yes, it did." She stood, brushing dirt off her knees. "This one won't. You can't know that." "No, but I can try." The wind shifted, coming from the northwest now. Sarah looked up, clouds building on the horizon, dark-bellied, heavy, storm clouds. They had maybe 90 minutes before rain. Marcus pulled James aside. Sarah heard fragments, their voices low. Words clipped. "She's been different since her husband died." Marcus kept his back to Sarah. "More reckless. Taking cases she used to decline." James said something in Swahili. "I know she knows what she's doing. That's not the point." Marcus wiped sweat from his forehead with his sleeve. "Last month she operated on that zebra with the shattered femur. 4-hour surgery. The thing died anyway." Sarah kept unpacking the medical kit. Scalpels, forceps, hemostats. Her hands moved through the routine laying instruments on the sterile drape in order of use. She'd done this 200 times. The conversation behind her might as well have been static. Emily stood close enough to overhear. Her eyes flicked between Marcus and Sarah. "I'm calling for backup," Marcus said, louder now. He pulled the satellite phone from his belt, punched numbers, held it to his ear. Sarah unwrapped a suture pack, checked the gauge. 3-0 nylon, 14 inches, good for muscle closure. "This is Ranger Webb, Mara North Conservancy, requesting emergency veterinary support. Grid 7, adult lioness, critical condition, field surgery required." Marcus listened. "Understood. ETA, 90 minutes by chartered flight from Nairobi. Confirm." He lowered the phone. Sarah said nothing, kept prepping, laid out the antibiotic vials ceftiofur, gentamicin, drew up doses in separate syringes. Her thumbnail tested each plunger. "Dr. Hayes can be here by noon," Marcus said. His voice was formal now, ranger to civilian. "I recommend we stabilize the patient and wait for senior consultation." Sarah checked her watch. 10:45, 90 minutes. She knelt beside the lioness again, put her palm on the animal's flank. The breathing was shallow, irregular. She counted respirations 28 per minute. Should be 15 to 20 when sedated. The lioness's respiratory system was compromised. Blood oxygen dropping. "Emily, check the pulse ox." Emily fumbled with the monitor, clipped the sensor to the lioness's tongue. Numbers flickered on the screen. 89%. Normal was 95 to 100. Sarah stood, looked at Marcus. She doesn't have 90 minutes. You don't know that. Yes, I do. The wind gusted, kicked up dust that stung Sarah's eyes. The clouds were closer now, building vertical. She could smell the rain coming, that electric smell of moisture hitting dry earth somewhere miles away. James was watching the sky. 90 minutes, maybe less. Marcus turned on him. You're not a meteorologist. I have lived here 56 years. I know the rain. Sarah pulled on surgical gloves. The latex snapped against her wrists. We're operating now. Sarah. Marcus stepped closer. Think about this. You'll be working in deteriorating conditions. Minimal support staff. If something goes wrong, if we wait, she dies anyway. You can't know. Her respiration is failing. Blood oxygen at 89 and dropping. That's not a guess, Marcus. That's physiology. Emily was scrubbing her hands at the water jug, betadine turning them orange-brown. She worked under her fingernails the way Sarah had taught her. 2 minutes. Thorough. Marcus pulled out the satellite phone again. What are you doing? Sarah asked. Documenting. For the record. He pressed buttons, spoke into the phone. Time is 10:47. Dr. Brennan is proceeding with field surgery against my recommendation. Weather conditions deteriorating. Backup en route, but will not arrive in time. I have advised postponement. Advice declined. He lowered the phone, looked at Sarah. She looked back. Anything else? Yeah. Don't screw this up. The first raindrops hit. Fat and cold, Sarah felt one land on her forearm, slide down to her wrist. James, set up the tarp. James and Marcus strung a canvas tarp between two Land Rovers, creating a roof over the surgical site. It drummed when the rain intensified. The light under the tarp went gray and flat. Sarah positioned the surgical lamp battery-powered LED. Switched it on. White light flooded the lioness's neck. The cub was pacing again. Tighter circles, chirping continuously now, high and frantic. James, keep him back. James moved one Land Rover to create a barrier. The cub stopped at it, pressed his face between the tire and the bumper, trying to reach his mother. Emily finished scrubbing, held her hands up, dripping. What do you need me to do? Sarah handed her a towel. Dry off, then hold the retractor when I tell you. Don't let go no matter what. Okay. I mean it. Your arms will get tired. You'll want to adjust your grip. Don't. If that retractor slips, I lose my visual field and we're done. Emily's face went pale. She nodded. Sarah positioned herself beside the lioness's neck. The swollen mass was the size of her fist, hot under her gloved palm. She picked up the scalpel, held it over the incision site. Marcus stood at the perimeter, watching. His jaw worked like he was chewing something tough. The rain drummed louder on the tarp. Water dripped through a seam, landed on Sarah's shoulder. She looked at the lioness's face. The eyes were half open, pupils dilated. Unconscious but not entirely gone. Somewhere in there the animal was still present, still fighting. The cub chirped again. Sarah knew what she was about to do. She'd operated in worse conditions, that's what she told herself. But standing there with rain starting to come through the tarp, she knew this was different. This was grief making the call, not medicine. She knew it. Did it anyway. She pressed the scalpel to skin, then she heard a change in the lioness's breathing. Hitch, a pause. She looked at the monitor, heart rate spiking. 120, 130, 140. She's waking up, Emily whispered. Sarah checked her watch. 12 minutes since the dart hit. Should have 20 more minutes of sedation. But the lioness's ear flicked. A voluntary movement. The anesthesia was wearing off early. Sarah made the first cut. 4 inches, clean through skin. The scalpel parted tissue and drainage came thick, infected fluid that smelled like meat left in the sun. It pooled in the wound edges, viscous. Emily's hands trembled, holding the gauze. "Breathe through your mouth." Sarah didn't look up. "You'll get used to it." She picked up the irrigation syringe, flushed the wound with sterile saline. The infected drainage washed away in cloudy streams, dripping into the dirt. More kept coming from deeper in the tissue. Sarah extended the incision another 2 inches, cut through subcutaneous fat into the muscle layer. The bleeding started, then small vessels compromised by infection, leaking dark blood that mixed with the drainage. She packed gauze into the wound margins to control it. Her forceps searched for the quill, probed through infected tissue, feeling for something solid. Nothing. She went deeper, into the muscle belly itself. The neck muscles were dense, layered. The quill could be anywhere in there. The rain hammered the tarp. Water dripped through a tear in the canvas, landed on Sarah's forearm. She ignored it. "How much longer?" Marcus called from the perimeter. Sarah didn't answer. The forceps touched something hard. She adjusted the angle, probed around it. Definitely foreign. She worked the tips of the forceps around the object, tried to grip it. It slipped. She tried again, got purchase this time, pulled gently. The tissue resisted. The quill was wrapped in scar tissue, months of the body trying to wall it off. She pulled harder. Her arthritic hand cramped around the forceps handle. Pain shot up her wrist. She flexed her fingers, adjusted her grip, kept pulling. The quill fragment came free. 3.5 inches of porcupine spine, thick as a pencil lead, crusted with dried infection. She held it up to the light. "That's what was killing her," she said. Emily stared at it. "That's so small. Doesn't take much." Sarah dropped the quill into a specimen bag, turned back to the wound. The abscess cavity was larger than the surface swelling suggested it tracked deep into the neck muscles. Following the path of least resistance, she could see damaged tissue throughout. Gray and soft, non-viable. She switched to a fresh scalpel, started cutting away the dead tissue. It came out in chunks, paste-like. The smell got worse. More bleeding started from the raw muscle underneath. "Retractor," Sarah said. Emily positioned the metal retractor in the wound, pulled the edges apart to give Sarah room to work. Her arms shook from the awkward angle. "Lock your elbows. Use your body weight, not your muscles." Emily shifted. The shaking stopped. The monitor beeped. Sarah glanced at it. Blood pressure dropping 90/60. Should be 120/80. "Sarah," Marcus started. "I hear it." She kept working, had to remove all the infected tissue or the wound would never heal. Her hands moved fast but steady, cutting, irrigating, packing. The surgical field filled with blood-tinged saline. Her hand cramped again. She paused, flexed her fingers. The joints ached deep, the kind of pain that meant the arthritis was flaring. She pushed through it. The rain intensified. Visibility dropped even with the lamp. Emily was holding the retractor and a flashlight now, trying to keep both steady. She dropped the flashlight. Marcus caught it before it hit the dirt. Took over lighting without being asked. He positioned himself opposite Sarah, holding the beam steady on the wound. Sarah packed the cavity with antibiotic-soaked gauze, started closing, running stitch pattern, pulling the muscle layers together. Her hands moved through the routine pierce, loop, pull, tie, pierce, loop, pull, tie. Each movement sent fresh pain through her knuckles. She ignored it. She was halfway through the closure when the lioness's breathing changed, faster, shallower. "How long since darting?" Sarah asked. Emily checked her watch. 1 hour 40 minutes. Should have another 20 minutes of sedation, but the lioness's ear was flicking now, twitching with each raindrop that hit it. "Respiratory rate Increasing, Emily said. She was watching the monitor. 32, 36. The anesthesia was wearing off. Stress response to blood loss, maybe. Or the lioness's metabolism burning through the drugs faster than expected. Either way, Sarah couldn't redose. The animal was already at maximum for her body weight. Another dose could stop her heart. "Sarah," Marcus said, "keep pressure on that bleeder." Sarah pointed with the forceps at a small vessel pumping blood into the wound. Emily shifted the gauze, pressed down. "Don't let go," Sarah said. She worked faster. The sutures went in quick now, less careful about spacing. Just needed to close the wound before the lioness woke. Her hand cramped hard. She had to stop, shake it out. Lost 5 seconds. Started again. 10 sutures. 12, 15. The lioness's eye opened. Not all the way, just a slit. The pupil was still dilated, but the eye tracked movement. Sarah placed the last 3 sutures, tied them off, cut the ends, 18 total. She wrapped the wound gauze first, then stretch bandage, securing it snug but not tight enough to restrict breathing. Her hands shook now that the focus was breaking. She forced them steady. Final injections. Ceftiofur, 2 milliliters intramuscular in the hip, meloxicam, 1 milliliter subcutaneous, vitamin B complex, 3 milliliters intramuscular, IV catheter next. She shaved a patch on the front leg, prepped with betadine, slid the needle into the cephalic vein, taped it secure, hung the fluid bag on a makeshift pole in acacia branch wedged between 2 rocks, lactated ringer solution, wide open to rehydrate. Done. Sarah sat back, stripped off her gloves. Her shirt was soaked, rain and blood and sweat. She couldn't tell which was which anymore. Emily was cleaning instruments in a bucket of rainwater. Her movements were mechanical, precise, probably in shock but functioning. Marcus was already on the radio. "HQ, surgery complete. Patient stable. Stand by for vitals." Emily read from the monitor. Heart rate 135, blood pressure 90/60, temperature 104.2, respiratory rate 28. Marcus relayed the numbers. The radio crackled back. "Copy. Dr. Hayes, ETA, 30 minutes by air. Maintain monitoring." "Acknowledged." Sarah checked the lioness's gum color. Pale pink. Tacky to the touch. Still dehydrated, but the IV would fix that. She pressed on the gum's capillary refill. Timed 3 seconds. Should be under 2, but acceptable, given blood loss. The wound wasn't bleeding. Good closure. She adjusted the IV flow rate, counted the drops, 60 per minute. James appeared from the ridge. "The cub wants to come closer." Sarah looked. The cub was at the Land Rover barrier, belly crawling, whimpering. He'd been quiet during the surgery, but now that it was over, the sound was constant. "Let him come," Sarah said. Marcus turned. "Protocol says we maintain separation until the patient is, let him come. If he interferes with the IV, he won't." James moved the Land Rover, created a gap in the barrier. The cub didn't rush. He approached slow, low to the ground. Circled his mother once, twice, sniffed the bandage carefully, sniffed Sarah's boot. Then he lay down, put his head on his mother's foreleg, started purring that deep, rattling sound that vibrated his whole body. Emily was filming on her phone. Tears ran down her face. She tried to hide it, tilted her head like she was checking the frame. Sarah watched the cub. Her jaw ached from clenching. She swallowed hard. Marcus saw her face. Something changed in his expression. Recognition. Maybe. Understanding that this wasn't just a surgery to her, the storm was passing. The rain lightened to drizzle, then stopped. The clouds broke apart. Sunset light came through gaps in the tarp, gold and orange on wet grass. The four of them stood in a loose circle around the lioness and her cub. Nobody spoke. Just listened water dripping from the tarp. The cub's purr, the lioness's breathing, distant thunder rolling away east. Sarah pulled out her cigarette pack, soaked through. She tried lighting one anyway. The matches were wet, wouldn't catch. She gave up, sat down in the dirt. Exhaustion hit all at once, made her arms heavy. "Dr. Brennan, you should—" Emily started. "I'm fine." Marcus brought her a water bottle. Sarah took it, realized she hadn't drunk anything in 3 hours. The water was warm, tasted like plastic. She drained half the bottle. James built a small fire 20 feet from the surgical site, used dry wood he'd stored in his Land Rover. The smoke rose straight up in the still air. They waited. The cub kept purring. Cub. The lioness's breathing deepened, evened out, moving from drug-induced unconsciousness toward natural sleep. Sarah watched the cub. He was doing more for his mother than any medication could. His presence, his warmth, the vibration of his purr, all of it telling the lioness she had a reason to fight. The chartered Cessna appeared from the south, landed on a flat stretch 200 yards away. Dr. Robert Hayes stepped out carrying a field kit, 67 years old, moved like he was 50. He walked straight to the lioness, knelt, examined the surgical site without greeting anyone first. Sarah watched him, waited. Hayes prodded the wound margins, checked the sutures, lifted the bandage edge to inspect underneath. His face gave nothing away. Finally, he looked at Sarah. "Clean work. Closure's good." Sarah exhaled. "But you operated in a rainstorm." She didn't have time to— "I know what you thought." Hayes stood, wiped his hands on his pants. "Doesn't mean you were right." He checked the monitor. "Fever's still high. 104. Infection's fighting back." He turned to Emily. "When was the last antibiotic dose?" 1,200 hours. Ceftiofur, 2 milliliters. Hayes pulled a vial from his kit. "Give another dose now, then every 12 hours. Emily prepared the injection. Hayes looked at Sarah. "You look like hell." "Thanks. Robert, when's the last time you slept?" "I'm fine." That wasn't the question. Sarah checked her watch. "Yesterday, maybe." "Go sleep. I'll take first watch." "I should stay." That wasn't a suggestion. Dr. Brennan. The old dynamic. He'd been her mentor 20 years ago. She'd been a surgical resident. He'd been the attending who taught her everything. Some things didn't change. Sarah nodded, stood. Her knees cracked. She started toward the Land Rover. Stopped. Looked back at the lioness. Hayes was already checking vitals. "She'll still be here in 4 hours. One way or another." Sarah climbed into the back of the Land Rover. Lay down on the bench seat. The vinyl was hot against her cheek. She could hear voices outside Hayes and Marcus talking. Emily asking questions. She closed her eyes. Sleep came fast, but not deep. 2 hours of restless dreams about David's hospital room, the monitors beeping, his hand in hers. She jerked awake, sat up, disoriented. Through the window she could see the fire, Hayes and Marcus sitting beside it. The lioness hadn't moved. Sarah climbed out, walked over. Hayes looked up. "Thought I told you to sleep." "I did." 2 hours isn't sleep. Sarah knelt beside the lioness, put her hand on the animal's flank. The breathing was still shallow, but steady. She checked the temperature herself, pressed the digital thermometer in, waited for the beep. 105.2, rising, not falling. Hayes increased the IV flow rate. Administered a second antibiotic gentamicin, different class than the Ceftiofur. He drew it up in a fresh syringe, injected it into the muscle of the lioness's hip. "Is that protocol?" Marcus asked. Hayes capped the needle. "Protocol would have been waiting for me before operating." Marcus said nothing. His jaw worked. "I told her to wait," he said finally. "And she didn't listen? Sounds like Sarah." Hayes checked the pulse ox reading. 86%. Dropping. He adjusted the oxygen mask over the lioness's muzzle. They'd brought a portable concentrator in Hayes's plane. The machine hummed, pushing enriched air into the mask. Marcus watched the monitor. Has she always been this reckless? Reckless. Hayes wrapped the blood pressure cuff around the lioness's foreleg, pumped it tight. No. Driven? Yes. Difference is her husband. You knew him. Met him twice. Good man. Patient. Put up with her being gone 6 months a year. The cuff deflated with a hiss. Hayes read the gauge. BP still low, 90/55. The cub hadn't moved from his position against the lioness's side. Wouldn't eat. Marcus had tried twice with impala meat, holding chunks close to the cub's mouth. The cub just sniffed it, turned away. "He won't eat until she does," Hayes said. "How do you know?" "Seen it before. Cubs that age. They mirror the mother." Hayes stood, stretched his back. "You take first watch with me. Emily and James can relieve us at midnight." Marcus nodded. They settled by the fire James had built. The flames cast orange light across the surgical site. The lioness's breathing made a wet sound fluid building in the airways from the neck, trauma compressing everything. Hayes poured coffee from a thermos, handed a cup to Marcus. They drank in silence. At 9:30, the lioness stirred, tried to lift her head, failed. Her legs kicked weak, uncoordinated. The cub whimpered, pressed closer. Hayes and Marcus moved together, knelt on either side of the lioness, hands gentle on her shoulders, keeping her down. "Easy," Hayes murmured. "Easy now." The lioness settled. Her eye was open, pupil contracted, semi-conscious, aware of their presence but too weak to respond. The cub licked his mother's face, long strokes, nose to ear. The lioness made a sound low, barely audible. The cub answered with a chirp. "See that," Hayes said. "He's doing more for her than we can." They returned to the fire. Marcus stared into the flames. "Is she going to make it?" Hayes took a long time answering. "Don't know. Fever this high, this long immune system's overwhelmed. What do we do? Wait, watch, hope." The fire crackled. Sparks rose into the darkness, somewhere distant. Hyenas called that rising whoop that sounded like laughter. Marcus checked the time. "Sarah's been different since her husband died. 3 months I've worked with her. Every animal we treat, she takes bigger risks." Hayes didn't respond. "I should have stopped her," Marcus said. "This surgery. Should have physically stopped her." "You tried." "Not hard enough." Marcus set down his cup. "She's going to kill herself doing this. Or kill something she's supposed to be saving." Hayes watched the lioness. Maybe. Or maybe she just needed to try. At midnight, Emily and James took over. Emily brought food canned stew heated over the fire. Hayes ate, Marcus didn't. "Get some sleep," Hayes told them. "Both of you." Marcus walked to his Land Rover, climbed in the back, didn't lie down, just sat there in the dark. Hayes stretched out on the ground by the fire, used his jacket as a pillow, asleep in 2 minutes. Emily and James sat across from each other, the fire between them. Emily wrapped her hands around a coffee mug for warmth. The night had turned cold, temperature dropping into the 50s. "Can I ask you something?" Emily said. James nodded. "Your son. The lion attack. How do you not hate them?" James poked the fire with a stick. Sparks scattered. He didn't answer for a long time. "I did hate them," he said finally. "For 2 years." Emily waited. "Then I realized the lion did not hate my son. The lion was hungry. My son was in the wrong place. That simple? No. But accepting it was simpler than hating." Emily checked the lioness's temperature. pressed the thermometer in, waited for the beep. 105.8. The highest reading yet. She radioed Hayes. He appeared from the darkness, fully alert despite being asleep minutes ago. He checked vitals. Respiratory rate 40 breaths per minute. Heart rate 160. The lioness's breathing was labored, sides heaving. "She's crashing," Hayes said. He pulled out a syringe, drew up medication. "Dexamethasone, bring the fever down." He injected it. They waited. 5 minutes. 10. Emily checked the temperature again. 105.6. Still dropping. 15 minutes. 105. 20 minutes. 104.6. Hayes exhaled. "Fever's breaking." Emily watched the monitor. The numbers kept improving. Temperature stabilizing at 103, heart rate dropping to 140, respiratory rate down to 32. The lioness's breathing eased. Less labored. The cub shifted position, started nursing. His small mouth worked at the nipple, pulling weakly. "Is that safe?" Emily asked. With the neck wound, Hayes checked the bandage. No fresh bleeding. If she's letting him, it's safe. The cub nursed for 3 minutes, stopped, curled against his mother's belly. The lioness's tail flicked once voluntary movement, the first since surgery. Hayes smiled. Not much, just the corners of his mouth. "That's our sign. She's coming back." Emily couldn't stop the tears. They came hot and fast. She turned away, pretending to check equipment. James smiled too. "Rare." He added wood to the fire. "Wake Sarah," Hayes said. "She should see this." Emily walked to the Land Rover, shook Sarah's shoulder. "Dr. Brennan, she's better." Sarah jerked awake, hair wild, shirt wrinkled. She stumbled out, disoriented. The lioness's eyes were open. Both of them. Clear, focused. The cub was nursing again, more vigorously this time. Sarah knelt beside them, checked the wound swelling reduced dramatically. Checked capillary refill time under 2 seconds now. Checked hydration skin, tent, test, normal. She sat back, closed her eyes, her shoulders dropped. When she opened her eyes, they were wet. She turned her head fast so no one would see, but they all saw. Marcus appeared with a coffee thermos, handed it to her without speaking. Sarah drank. The coffee was terrible bitter. Lukewarm. She drank it anyway. They shared what was left as sunrise built on the horizon. The sky went from black to gray to pink. Golden light spread across the grassland. Acacia trees turned to black silhouettes against the dawn. The lioness and her cub lay together in the grass. 4 humans sat in a circle around them. James spoke. "In Maasai, we have a saying. The lion chooses when to die." Sarah looked at him. "She chose not to," James said. "Because of her cub, and because of you, I just gave her the chance." Hayes nodded. "That's all any of us can do." The lioness made that sound again low, rhythmic, prum, prum, prum. The cub chirped back. First vocal exchange since the surgery. Everyone stopped talking, watched. The lioness lifted her head, just inches off the ground. Her neck muscles trembled with effort. She licked the cub's face. One long stroke, then her head dropped back to the dirt. Exhausted, but alive. Sarah's throat was tight. She swallowed hard. "We did good work." Hayes stood, brushed dirt off his pants. "Yes, you did." The sunrise was full now. Light flooding the Mara. The storm had washed everything clean. The grass smelled fresh. The air felt lighter. Marcus's radio crackled. "Mara North, this is HQ, requesting status update on surgical patient." Marcus took the radio. "Patient responsive, vital signs improving. Temperature 103, heart rate 140, respiration 26, prognosis upgraded from critical to guarded. Copy that. Dr. Hayes recommend continued monitoring. Hayes took the radio. Minimum 5 days on site. Switching to oral antibiotics today. Will reassess day 3 for mobility. Acknowledged. Sarah checked her watch. 6:15 a.m. Day 2. 9 hours post-surgery. The lioness had made it through the critical window. Now they just had to keep her stable. Emily was making breakfast instant oatmeal, powdered milk. She handed bowls around. Everyone ate mechanically. Nobody tasted it. The cub finally fell asleep, curled tight against his mother's belly. His breathing synchronized with hers. Sarah finished her oatmeal, set the bowl down, looked at Hayes. What now? We monitor. If she can stand by this afternoon, that's a good sign. If not, we extend the timeline. Sarah nodded. She stood, walked to the ridge overlooking the Mara, needed to think. The grassland stretched to the horizon, gold and green and brown. Zebra herds in the distance, a giraffe moving slow between acacia trees. She thought about David, the hospital in Oregon. Those final 2 days. The doctors had said he held on as long as he could, that his body fought, that even with Sarah there at the end, it wasn't enough. She'd never believed them. Until now, watching this lioness fight for herself, for her cub. James appeared beside her, stood without speaking. The lioness will live, he said finally. Yes, you did good work. We all did. Will you forgive yourself now? Sarah thought about it. I don't know, but I'll try. James nodded. That is enough. They walked back to camp together. At 2 p.m., day 2, Sarah was in her tent when she heard shouting. She ran out. Hayes and Marcus were crouched over the lioness. Emily was on the monitor, calling numbers fast. Sarah sprinted over. What happened? Hayes looked up. His face was grim. She's spiking again. 106.5, heart rate 165. Sarah checked the wound. Fresh swelling, angry red spreading beyond the bandage, clear fluid leaking through the gauze. She peeled back the bandage. The wound edges were hot, inflamed, secondary infection, different from the original. This was new. Her stomach dropped. Sarah took a swab from the wound drainage, smeared it on a glass slide, dropped gentian violet stain, waited 30 seconds, rinsed, placed it under the field microscope, gram-negative rods. Different morphology from the original infection. These were smaller, clustered in pairs, environmental contamination, soil bacteria, Pseudomonas, maybe, or something similar, resistant to ceftiofur. Her hands shook, setting down the microscope. She pressed them flat against her thighs to stop the tremor. Hayes was already drawing up a different antibiotic, enrofloxacin, broad spectrum. He didn't ask Sarah's opinion, just administered it 2 milliliters into the muscle. The lioness didn't react. Too weak. When did this start? Hayes asked. His voice was flat, professional. Emily checked her notes. Temp was normal at noon. 102.8, started spiking around 1300 hours. 1 hour ago. Hayes examined the wound more carefully, peeled the bandage back fully. The incision line was intact, sutures holding, but the tissue around it was swollen, hot, red streaks radiating outward from the wound margins, classic signs of spreading infection. He pressed on the tissue. More clear fluid drained out. He took his own swab, ran his own slide, looked at it under the microscope, set it down, looked at Sarah. Environmental contamination, he said. Introduced during surgery. Sarah's throat was dry. Yes. From operating in the rain. Yes. Hayes stood, checked the monitor. Heart rate 170, BP 80/50. Temp 106.8 and rising. He increased the IV flow rate, added dexamethasone to bring down the fever, adjusted the oxygen flow, all clinical, efficient, no wasted movement. Treatment options, he asked. Sarah forced herself to think. Different antibiotic class, aggressive fluids, monitor for septic shock. Surgery. She's too weak. Another surgery will kill her. Hayes nodded. Agreed. He turned to Emily. Continue current antibiotics every 6 hours. Check vitals every 30 minutes. If temp goes above 107, ice packs on major vessels. Yes, sir. Hayes walked away, toward his plane. Didn't look at Sarah. Marcus appeared from behind the vehicle. He'd been listening. We need to talk, he said to Sarah. Sarah followed him out of earshot from the others. They stopped near the ridge. Marcus stood with his back to the camp, arms crossed. Hayes thinks she's going to die, Marcus said. Sarah said nothing. Environmental contamination, from the surgery, from operating in a rainstorm instead of waiting. I know. Marcus turned to face her. This is what I was afraid of. Sarah looked at the ground. You went ahead anyway, Marcus said. Against my recommendation. Against common sense. You operated in contaminated conditions because… He stopped himself. Because what? Sarah's voice came out hoarse. Because you're trying to save something you couldn't save before. Sarah's jaw clenched. Don't. Your husband. You think if you save enough animals, it'll balance out not being there when he died? You don't know anything about, I know you're going to kill yourself doing this, or kill something you're supposed to be saving. Marcus's voice was quiet now, worse than yelling. Like that lioness. Sarah's hands were shaking. She shoved them in her pockets. I should have stopped you, Marcus said. Physically stopped you from operating. You tried. Not hard enough. He looked at her. This is on both of us, but mostly you. He walked away. Sarah stood alone at the ridge. The sun was hot on her shoulders. Sweat ran down her spine. She pulled out a cigarette. Tried to light it. The lighter clicked 3 times before catching. She got 2 drags in before her hands shook too hard to hold it. The cigarette fell, landed in dry grass. She stepped on it, ground it out. Hayes found her an hour later. Sarah was sitting on the ground near the surgical site, watching the lioness. The animal's breathing was labored. 48 breaths per minute, panting. The cub was lying pressed against his mother, whimpering, continuous sound, desperate. Hayes sat down beside Sarah, didn't speak for a long time. Want to talk about it? He asked finally. No. Good, because I'm going to talk and you're going to listen. Sarah picked at a scab on her knuckle, the acacia thorn scratch from yesterday, already infected, red around the edges. 20 years ago, Hayes said. You were the best surgical resident I'd seen. Steady hands, cool head, made good decisions under pressure. Sarah didn't respond. That woman operated on the lioness yesterday, Hayes continued. Good incision, clean extraction, solid closure. But that woman also made a mistake. She operated in contaminated conditions. That was bad judgment. Sarah's fingernail dug into the scab. It bled. I know, she said. Do you… Hayes looked at her. Or do you think this is punishment cosmic justice for not being there when your husband died? That's not… I read your file before coming here, 3 high-risk surgeries since David died, 2 fatalities. Stop. This will be 3. Sarah stood up fast. Robert, please. Unless you start separating what you can control from what you can't, I could have controlled this. If I'd waited for you, maybe not. She might have died before I arrived. We'll never know. Hayes stood too. But you'll spend the rest of your career second-guessing yourself if you don't accept one thing. What? You're human. You made a judgment call. It didn't work out. Learn from it. Move forward. She's dying because of me. Hayes's voice went hard. She's dying because she got a porcupine quill in her neck 4 months ago. You gave her a chance she wouldn't have had otherwise. That's all any of us can ever do. It's not enough. It has to be, because it's all we have. He walked back to camp. Sarah stood alone. The sun was setting, orange light across the grass. Beautiful. She hated it. When she returned to camp, no one looked at her. Emily was preparing the next antibiotic dose. Sarah approached to help. Emily moved away. Not obviously. Just shifted her body angle so Sarah wasn't needed. "I can do that," Sarah said. "I've got it." Emily's voice was polite, professional, cold. Sarah stepped back. Marcus was at the monitor, recording vitals in the log. Sarah looked over his shoulder. He closed the notebook. "I'll update you when there's changes." "I should." "Dr. Hayes has primary now. He'll make the calls." Sarah walked to the fire. James was there, making coffee. He was the only one who nodded when she sat down. Handed her a cup. She wrapped her hands around it. The heat helped stop the shaking. "Thank you," she whispered. James said nothing. Just tended the fire. Sarah could feel the others avoiding her. Emily working on the far side of the surgical site. Marcus checking equipment with his back turned. Hayes writing notes in his journal. Not looking up. The silence pressed on her. Heavier than words. At 8 p.m., Hayes called everyone together for a status update. Sarah stood at the edge of the circle. "Temperature peaked at 107.2, Hayes said. "Currently 106.5, heart rate 175, blood pressure 70/40, respiratory distress increasing." Emily's voice was small. "What's the prognosis?" Hayes didn't sugarcoat it. 20%, maybe less. The secondary infection is aggressive. Her immune system is overwhelmed. What do we do? Continue current treatment. Monitor. Hope the antibiotics kick in. He paused. If she crashes, we'll have to make a decision about euthanasia. Marcus looked at Sarah. "Who makes that call?" "I do," Hayes said. "As primary veterinarian." Sarah's stomach twisted. She was being sidelined, removed from decision-making. Professional consequences for professional failure. She'd done this to herself. The meeting ended. Everyone returned to their stations. Sarah sat by the fire. Alone. The lioness's breathing got worse through the evening. Wet, rattling, fluid in the lungs. The cub wouldn't leave her side, wouldn't eat when Marcus tried again with fresh meat. Just lay there, whimpering. At 10 p.m., the lioness tried to stand. Her legs spasmed. She collapsed, head hitting the ground hard. The cub jumped on her, licking her face frantically. Sarah started to move. Hayes put a hand on her arm. "Let her be. She's in pain." "I know, but there's nothing we can do that we're not already doing." Sarah sat back down, forced herself to watch. This was her penance. Watching what she'd caused. The lioness's breathing became more labored. 52 breaths per minute, each breath a struggle. Her sides heaving. The cub pressed against her, still licking her face, still whimpering. Sarah couldn't watch anymore. She stood, started walking toward the Land Rover. "Where are you going?" Marcus called. "Anywhere but here." "You don't get to run." Marcus's voice was sharp. "You stay. You see this through." "Why? So I can watch her die. So you can be here if she doesn't." Sarah stopped, turned back. Marcus was standing now, facing her. "You made the call," he said. "You operated. You own this. Whatever happens, you don't walk away." Sarah felt something crack inside her chest. She walked back, sat on the ground near the fire, put her head in her hands. The night stretched. 11 p.m., midnight, 1 a.m. The lioness's breathing never improved. The cub's whimpering never stopped. Sarah sat in the dirt, watching. Her shirt was filthy. Dried blood, mud, sweat. She smelled like infection and smoke and failure. Emily brought her water, set it down without speaking. Walked away. James added wood to the fire, didn't look at her. Hayes checked vitals every 30 minutes, recorded them, never asked Sarah's opinion. She was invisible. Worse than invisible. She was the mistake everyone was working around. At 2 a.m., Hayes called her over. His voice was formal. "Dr. Brennan, I need you to look at something." Sarah approached, knelt beside the lioness. "Listen to her breathing," Hayes said. Sarah put her ear close to the lioness's chest. The breathing was still labored, but different, deeper, slower. She checked the respiratory rate, 40 breaths per minute, down from 52. Hayes handed her the thermometer. "Check it yourself." Sarah pressed it in, waited for the beep, 105.8, down from 106.5. She checked again. Same reading. "The fever's breaking," Hayes said. Sarah looked at the monitor. Heart rate 150, down from 175. Blood pressure 85/55, up from 70/40. The lioness was improving, against all odds, against everything Sarah had expected. She sat back, couldn't process it. Hayes was watching her face. The antibiotics worked, and her immune system kicked in. He paused. "Sometimes they fight back, even when we think they're done." Sarah's throat was too tight to speak. "Go clean yourself up," Hayes said quietly. "You look like hell." Sarah walked to her tent, found clean clothes, walked to the water station, stripped off her shirt, used a cloth to wash cold water, rough scrubbing, got the blood off her arms, the dirt off her face, put on the clean shirt. It smelled like detergent. Normal. She walked back. The sky was starting to lighten. Pre-dawn gray. The lioness was still breathing. The cub was still beside her, but the numbers were trending right. Sarah sat down by the fire. James handed her coffee. She took it. "She will live," James said. Simple, certain. Sarah wanted to believe him. But after everything, after the contamination, the secondary infection, the fever, how could she trust that anything would turn out right? Dawn broke over the Mara. Sarah hadn't slept. She sat by the fire, watching the lioness through the changing light, gray to pink to gold. At 5 a.m., the lioness's eyes opened, both of them, clear, focused. Not the glazed semi-consciousness of fever. She was awake. Hayes was asleep in his plane, Marcus in his Land Rover, Emily in her tent. James dozed by the fire, chin on his chest. Sarah was alone with the observation. The lioness turned her head toward the cub. Slow movement, careful. The cub was asleep against her belly. She lowered her muzzle, touched his head. The cub woke, chirped, stood up, tail high. The lioness made that sound, prum, 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 reassurance. The cub started nursing. The lioness shifted position to make it easier for him. Voluntary movement. Deliberate. Sarah checked the monitor from where she sat. Temperature 104.8, down from 105.8. Heart rate 145, down from 150. Still elevated. But trending right. She watched the lioness. The animal's breathing was deeper now, 30 breaths per minute, down from 40. The wet rattle was gone from her chest. Hayes emerged from his plane at 6, walked over, checked vitals without speaking, looked at Sarah. "She turned around," he said. "Yes." "Antibiotics working. Immune system kicked in." He paused. "Or she just decided not to die." Sarah looked at him. Hayes knelt, examined the wound. The swelling had reduced overnight. Not gone, still inflamed, but better. He pressed on the tissue. Less drainage. The fluid that came out was clear, not infected. "I've seen this before," he said. "Rarely. Usually in mothers." "What do you mean?" "They decide to live. For their young. We can't explain it medically." He stood, brushed dirt off his knees. "The body does things we don't understand when there's a reason." The cub was nursing vigorously now. The lioness tolerated it despite the pain from her neck. Every time the cub pulled too hard, she flinched. But she didn't pull away. Hayes pointed. "That's why. She has a reason." Sarah watched them. Mother and cub. The cub oblivious to how close he'd come to being orphaned. The lioness enduring pain because her baby needed her. Hayes checked the IV bag, nearly empty. He replaced it with a fresh one, adjusted the flow rate. "I'm staying through today. Make sure she stays stable. You can take over monitoring tomorrow if she continues improving." Sarah nodded. "Get some rest." Hayes said, "That's an order." Sarah walked to her tent, lay down on the cot, stared at the canvas ceiling. Sleep wouldn't come. Her mind kept circling back to the same thing. The lioness hadn't survived because of Sarah's surgery. She'd survived because she fought. The surgery gave her the chance. Removed the quill, cleaned the infection, provided antibiotics and fluids. But the fighting that was hers, Sarah had done her part, the lioness had done the rest. And if the lioness had died despite the surgery, that wouldn't have been Sarah's failure. That would have been the infection winning. The body giving up. Not Sarah's fault. Sarah sat up. The realization was physical something shifting in her chest, making room for air she hadn't been able to take in for 3 years. She thought about David, the hospital in Oregon, the machines breathing for him, his hand in hers. The doctors said he fought, held on for 2 days after the stroke, gave Sarah time to get there from Kenya, even though he was unconscious. His body kept trying. It wasn't enough, but that wasn't Sarah's fault. Even if she'd been home when it happened, even if she'd called the ambulance herself, even if she'd been in the room when the stroke hit, the outcome would have been the same. The stroke destroyed his brain. The doctor said so. Massive hemorrhage, left hemisphere gone. She couldn't have saved him. She could only have been there, and she was. For those final 2 days, holding his hand, talking to him even though he couldn't hear, telling him it was okay to let go. That was enough. It had to be enough, because it was all she had. Sarah lay back down, closed her eyes. This time, sleep came. She woke to voices outside. Sunlight hot through the tent fabric. She checked her watch. 10 a.m. She'd slept 4 hours. Outside. Everyone was gathered around the lioness. Sarah joined them. The lioness was trying to stand. Her front legs straightened, trembling but holding weight, her hind legs pushed up. She swayed, unsteady, held it for 3 seconds, collapsed. The cub jumped back, startled, chirped. Sarah's first instinct was to help. She took a step forward. Hayes caught her eye, shook his head slightly. Let her try. The lioness tried again, got her front legs under her, hind legs shaking violently. She held it for 5 seconds this time. Fell. Third attempt. She stood, all 4 legs locked, swaying but vertical. She took 1 step. The front left leg buckled. She caught herself. Another step. More stable. 3rd step. 4th. Then she lay down, sides heaving, exhausted. But she'd walked. Emily was crying, not hiding it this time. Marcus had his arms crossed, but his jaw wasn't tight anymore. James was smiling. That rare smile. Hayes checked vitals. Heart rate elevated from the exertion, but good response. She's strong enough to move. Sarah knelt beside the lioness. The animal's eyes tracked her movement. Aware. Alert. Sarah touched the lioness's shoulder, just briefly. The fur was coarse, warm. The lioness didn't flinch. "You did this," Sarah whispered. Too quiet for anyone else to hear. "Not me. You." She stood, looked at Hayes. "What's next?" "We monitor through today. If she stays stable, we start weaning the IV tomorrow. See if she can drink on her own. And then we talk about release." Marcus turned. "She's not ready for release." "Not today," Hayes said. "But soon. Week to 10 days. Maybe. She can barely stand. She'll build strength fast. Lions recover quicker than you'd think." James spoke. "She should be released in her territory. With her pride." Marcus shook his head. "Too risky. We should relocate her. Fresh start." "No." James's voice was firm. "This is her home, her family. Her pride might reject her. Lions do not reject family because of weakness." Sarah listened to them argue, watched the lioness. The animal was resting now, conserving energy. The cub was playing nearby, pouncing on grass tufts. "Where's her pride now?" Sarah asked. James pointed north. "River Bend, 5 kilometers. They have been there 3 days." "Will they come back to this territory?" "Yes. This is their range. They move in patterns." Sarah looked at Marcus. "We release her here, in her territory. Monitor for 2 weeks. If she doesn't reunite with the pride, we reassess." Marcus started to object. Stopped. "Fine. But we monitor closely. Trail cameras, daily patrols." "Agreed." Hayes nodded approval. "That's the plan, then." The day passed in careful observation. The lioness slept mostly, woke to let the cub nurse, tried standing twice more, made it further each time. By evening, she was walking 10 yards before lying down. The fever stayed down. 103.2. Heart rate 130. Respiratory rate 24. All improving. Hayes prepared to leave at sunset. "I'll be back in 3 days to check on her. Call if anything changes." "Thank you. Robert?" He looked at her, really looked. "You did good work, Sarah. Don't forget that." She nodded. After he left, the 4 of them, Sarah, Marcus, Emily. James sat around the fire, the first time they'd all sat together without tension since the surgery. Emily broke the silence. "What made her fight back medically? I mean..." Hayes had said immune system, antibiotics, but Sarah knew different now. "The cub," she said. Marcus looked at her. "She fought for him." Sarah continued. "We gave her the tools, the surgery, the medication, but the fighting that was hers, because of him." James nodded. "The lion chooses when to die." "She chose not to," Sarah said. They sat in silence, watched the flames, the lioness and cub sleeping in the grass beyond the firelight. Marcus spoke quietly. "I'm sorry for what I said about your husband." Sarah looked at him. "It wasn't my place," Marcus said. "You were right, though." Sarah poked the fire with a stick. "I was trying to save him through them. Every animal, every surgery. And now," Sarah thought about it, "now I just want to help, give them a chance. The outcome that's not mine to control." Marcus nodded. Emily asked, "What changed?" Sarah looked at the lioness. "She did. Watching her fight, realizing I didn't save her. I just gave her the chance. She saved herself. For her cub," James added. "Yes." The fire crackled. Somewhere in the darkness, a hyena called. The lioness's ear flicked at the sound, but she didn't wake. Sarah felt different, lighter. Like she'd been carrying something heavy for 3 years and finally set it down. Not healed, not yet, but starting to. At midnight, Sarah took watch with James. They sat in comfortable silence. The stars were out, no moon. The Milky Way spread across the sky. "Thank you," Sarah said. "For what?" "For not judging, when everyone else did." James fed wood into the fire. "I know what it is to carry weight that is not yours. My son's death. I carried blame for 8 years, thought I should have protected him. And now I know I cannot protect anyone from the world, Only love them while they are here. Sarah absorbed that, turned it over in her mind. The lioness stirred, stood up, walked 6 steps to a different patch of grass, lay down again, stronger. "She will live," James said. "Yes, and so will you." Sarah looked at him. He was watching the fire, face peaceful. "I hope so," she said. Dawn came. Day 4. The lioness walked 20 yards, drank water from a bowl Emily set out, ate small pieces of meat Marcus provided. The cub was stronger too, playing harder. Wrestling with his mother's tail, she tolerated it, even swatted him gently when he got too rough. Normal behavior. Recovery. By day 6, they removed the IV. The lioness didn't need it anymore. She was drinking on her own, eating, moving. Hayes returned on day 10, examined her, removed the bandage. The wound was healing. Pink scar tissue, no infection signs. "She's ready," he said. "For what?" Sarah asked. "Release? Another week to build strength. Then we let her go." Sarah's chest tightened. Release meant letting go, trusting that the lioness would survive without them, but that's what this was always about. Giving her the chance, then stepping back. Day 12. The lioness walked 50 yards, ate half a warthog haunch Marcus brought, groomed the cub, normal mother behavior. Day 13. She walked 100 yards, rested in shade. Let the cub wrestle with her tail. She swatted him when he bit too hard, but didn't stop the play. Day 14. The scar on her neck was pink, healing clean. No infection. Hayes examined it, pronounced her medically cleared. "She's out of danger," he said. "Remarkable recovery." Before leaving, he pulled Sarah aside. "I'm sorry for what I said about the surgery." Sarah looked at him. "You were right. I was reckless." "Maybe." Hayes adjusted his kit on his shoulder. "But reckless with hope is better than careful with despair." They shook hands. He left. The backup veterinary team packed their equipment, drove away in dust. Just the original 4 remained now: Sarah, Marcus, Emily, James. Day 15. Morning. Clear sky. "We need to decide when to release her," Marcus said. They sat around the breakfast fire. The lioness and cub resting 30 feet away. James fed wood into the flames. "She is ready soon." Marcus shook his head. "Not yet. Another 3 days minimum." "Why wait? She walks. She eats. She is strong enough." "Strong enough to walk," Marcus said. "Not strong enough to hunt. Her pride will share kills with her until she can hunt." Marcus looked skeptical. "You can't guarantee that. I know this pride. 8 years I have tracked them. They share." Sarah watched the lioness. The animal was grooming herself, now long strokes of tongue over shoulder, down foreleg. Self-maintenance, sign of health. Day 18, Sarah said. "We release her day 18. That gives her 3 more days to build strength." Marcus considered it, nodded. "Okay, day 18. Day 15 afternoon. 3 Maasai elders arrived, walked from the ridge where they'd been watching since day 1. James went to meet them. Spoke in Ma. Extended conversation. Gestures toward the lioness. He returned. "They want payment for the goat, 5,000 shillings. Sarah pulled cash from her kit, counted out the bills, walked with James to meet the elders. The oldest one, maybe 70, face lined deep, took the money, spoke to James. "He says you have a brave heart." James translated. "Not many would try to save the lion." Sarah looked at the elder. "Tell him thank you." James spoke. The elder nodded, said something else. "He asks will she return to kill more livestock." Sarah chose her words carefully. "We'll monitor her. If she does, we'll pay for each animal." James translated. The elders conferred. The oldest one spoke again. They agreed to 1-month trial, James said. If she stays in the reserve, no more payment. If she returns to livestock, you pay. That's fair. They shook hands. The Maasai right hand clasped, left hand on the other's shoulder. The elder's grip was strong. His eyes held hers. He said something directly to her. James didn't translate right away. What did he say? Sarah asked. He said the lion chose well, to fight, and you chose well, to help. The elders left. Sarah watched them walk back toward the ridge, 3 figures against the afternoon sun. Day 16. The argument came at breakfast. Marcus pulled out a map, spread it on the ground. We should relocate her here, 15 kilometers south, no livestock, good game populations. James shook his head. No. It's safer, for her and for the Maasai. This is her territory. Her pride is here. We release her here. Marcus pointed at the map. Her pride moved north. They're not coming back. They will return. This is their pattern. Every season they move in circuits. They will be back in 5 days. You can't know that. I know this land. I know these lions. Emily spoke up. What if we're wrong? What if the pride doesn't accept her back? James looked at her. Then she will find another way. But we give her the chance with her family first. Marcus started to argue. Sarah cut him off. We release her here, she said. In her territory, we monitor for 2 weeks. If she doesn't reunite with the pride, we reassess. If she kills livestock, we relocate her then. Marcus looked at her. That's not protocol. Neither was operating in a rainstorm. Silence. Then Marcus's mouth twitched. Almost a smile. Fair point. So, we're agreed, Sarah asked. Everyone nodded. Day 18. Dawn. Sarah did the final examination. Checked the wound healed to scar tissue, pale pink against tawny fur. Checked range of motion the lioness could turn her head 90 degrees both directions. Checked body condition still thin but muscle tone improving. Heart rate normal. Temperature normal. Hydration good. Respiratory rate normal. She's ready, Sarah said. They'd built a temporary boma around the surgical site, thorn branches woven into a corral. Kept the lioness contained while she healed, 20 yards across. The lioness had pasted for 3 days, testing the boundaries. Now it was time to open it. Marcus pulled away the thorn branches at the gate section. Created a 6-foot opening. They stepped back, gave the lioness space. She stood immediately. Ears forward. Focused on the gap. The cub was already at the opening, bouncing on his toes. Excited. The lioness walked to the gate. Slow. Each step deliberate. She stopped at the threshold, looked at each of them. Sarah first, then Marcus, Emily, James. Sarah felt the lioness's gaze on her face. 3 seconds. 4. She wanted to believe it meant something, recognition, gratitude, knew it was probably just an animal assessing threats before moving to open ground, believed it anyway. The lioness touched noses with the cub, a brief contact. Then she walked through the gate. The cub bolted ahead, ran 20 yards, stopped, looked back, called to his mother, high chirp. The lioness followed. Her gait had a slight hitch favoring the left side where the wound pulled when she extended her stride, but she was moving. 40 yards out, the cub pounced on a grasshopper. Missed. Tried again. 60 yards. The lioness broke into a slow trot. Testing herself, the cub ran circles around her. Full of energy he'd stored up for 2 weeks. 100 yards. Both running now. Not fast. The lioness still building stamina. But running. 200 yards. They disappeared into the tall grass. Heading northwest, toward River Pride territory. The 4 humans stood at the empty boma. Sarah's hands were in her pockets. Emily was crying, not hiding it, letting the tears fall. Marcus had his arms crossed, jaw working. James was smiling, small, peaceful. "Think we'll see her again?" Marcus asked. James pointed north. "Yes, this is her home. She will stay near." "Even if we don't," Sarah said. "She's alive. That's enough." They packed camp through the afternoon. Quiet work. Efficient. Everything broke down into components, loaded into vehicles. Emily found Sarah by the Land Rover. "Will you come back next year?" Sarah looked at the grassland. Acacia trees dark against late sun. "I don't know yet. I hope you do. I learned a lot. Even the mistakes. Especially those." Emily hugged her. Quick, tight. "Thank you." She left for Nairobi at 4. Sarah watched her Land Rover disappear in dust. Marcus approached. "I called my daughter. Last night." Sarah turned, and she didn't answer. Left a voicemail, told her about the lion, about trying. "That's good." Marcus pulled out his phone, showed her the screen. Text message, "Maybe we can talk. No promises." "That's a start," Sarah said. "Yeah." He put the phone away. "What about you?" "I'm going home. Oregon. Visit David's grave." "To say what?" Sarah watched the grass bend in wind. "Goodbye. Thank you. I'm sorry. And I forgive both of us." Marcus nodded, held out his hand. Sarah shook it. He pulled her into a hug. Brief, hard. "We're friends now," he said. "So, call me when you need someone to tell you you're being reckless." Sarah laughed. First real laugh in weeks. "Deal." James gave her a beaded bracelet before she left. Traditional Maasai design, red and blue beads. "Those who help the lion receive its courage," he said. Sarah looked at it. "I don't feel courageous." "You will, when you need it." She put it on, tightened the cord around her wrist. "Thank you, James, for everything. You have good heart. Do not forget this." 3 weeks later, Willamette National Cemetery, Oregon. Rain drizzled light and cold. Sarah stood at David's grave. Simple headstone, name, dates, nothing else. She'd brought irises, his favorite, placed them in the built-in vase, sat on wet grass beside the stone, talked to him in her head, told him about Kenya, the lioness, the cub, the surgery that went wrong then right, about Marcus and Emily and James, about Hayes calling her out, about realizing she'd carried weight that wasn't hers. Told him she was sorry for not being there when the stroke happened. Sorry for being at that conference in Zimbabwe. Sorry for choosing work over him those final months. But also, she forgave him for dying. Forgave herself for living. Forgave both of them for things that couldn't be changed. She sat 20 minutes. Rain soaking through her jacket. Her phone rang. "Marcus." "Hey," she said. "You busy?" "Not particularly." Trail camera footage came in. Lioness made a kill 3 days ago. Warthog. Clean takedown. Sarah closed her eyes. "She's hunting." "Better." James confirmed visual yesterday. She reunited with River Pride. She and the cub are with the group. Cub playing with 3 other cubs. Sarah's throat tightened. "That's wonderful. Thought you'd want to know." "Thank you. One more thing. My daughter and I are meeting next month. She's coming to Kenya. 2 weeks." "Marcus, that's amazing." "Terrified, but yeah." Pause. "You coming back?" he asked. Sarah looked at David's headstone. Rain dripping off carved letters. "I don't know yet. I have things to finish here." "Like what?" "Like saying hello to who I was, before I started running." Marcus was quiet. Then, "So, are you coming back?" Sarah smiled. "Yeah, I'm coming back." "Good. Bring cigarettes." "I quit." "When? 5 days ago? How's it going?" "Terrible, but I'm trying. That's all any of us can do." They hung up. Sarah sat with the grave longer. The rain stopped. Sun broke through the clouds. Oregon green everywhere moss. Fir trees, wet grass. She took out her cigarette pack. 2 left, looked at it, put it back in her pocket, whispered to the headstone, "I'm going to be okay. We're going to be okay." Stood, touched the stone, brief, then walked to her rental car, drove away, didn't look back. The road curved through forest, rain-washed pavement, green hills rolling. She turned on the radio. Folk song she didn't know, left it playing. For the first time in 3 years, she was moving toward something, not running away. The bracelet James gave her caught on her sleeve. She adjusted it, felt the beads under her thumb. In Kenya, a lioness was teaching her cub to hunt, playing with her pride, living because she fought when it mattered. In Oregon, Sarah drove through morning light. Not happy yet, but something close. Trying. That was enough. There's something quiet that happens when we watch someone fight for what matters most to them. Something heavy and familiar. Maybe it's because many of us know what it feels like to carry weight we thought was ours, guilt over being somewhere else when we were needed, or blame for outcomes we never could have controlled. That kind of weight doesn't announce itself. It just settles in our chest and stays. Some of us have spent years trying to fix what can't be fixed, working harder, taking on more. Convinced that if we just save enough, help enough, try enough, it'll balance out the one time we couldn't. We don't always say this out loud, but we feel it in our hands when they shake, in the way we can't sleep, in how we avoid certain photographs. What Sarah learned from that lioness, and what perhaps you already know, is that we can only ever give each other chances. The fighting, the healing, the choosing to stay that belongs to the one who's hurting, not to us. And it's all right if that feels unresolved. It's all right if we never fully understand why some live and some don't, why we were there for some moments and not others. Thank you for staying with this story, for letting it sit with you.